of our mistakes, or of just life happening to us, that we surrender. That we finally realize we can't do it alone. It is our brokenness that takes us from being self-reliant to God-reliant. Because we understand that the only way through it is something bigger than us. And so it is in our brokenness that we open up to divine guidance. It is through our brokenness that we open up to our higher selves. That we let go of what we think is control and allow something bigger than us to step in and carry us. The second definition of salvation is liberation from illusion. Liberation from illusion. So what is this illusion that we're carrying? I think one of our biggest illusions is that we have to be perfect in order to be worthy. Like we've gotten this idea that in order to be acceptable to God, acceptable to our spouses, acceptable to our bosses, acceptable, we have to be perfect. We have to do it right. We have to get it right. And that somehow, if we don't do it right, if we don't get it right, if we're not perfect, then we are not enough. And we are not worthy. Charles Fillmore, our co-founder, in The Revealing Word, describes salvation as regaining conscious possession of our God-given attributes. Salvation is based solely on an inner overcoming, a change in consciousness. A change in consciousness. That's salvation. So the salvation plan of unity is the 5 principles, which are all about changing our consciousness, changing the way that we look at the world, changing the way that we think, so that we can change our experience. So just a word of warning. Embracing, honoring your brokenness doesn't mean you celebrate it. Right? Woohoo! I screwed up today! Go me! Nor do we want to perpetuate it. Right? So every time you tell yourself the story of, I'm a loser, look at me, I'm a loser, I can't do anything right, I never do anything right, I don't know why I even try, because I just can't get it right, there's no way. Every time we tell the story, what are we creating? Right? Unity's 3rd principle tells us that we create our experience through our thoughts, through our actions. And so, if you make a mistake and you turn around and go, well, I know that didn't work out this time, but let me go over here. Let me try it again and see if it'll work better. In recovery, we call that insanity. When you do the same thing and you expect a different result. Oh, yeah. Right? So honoring our brokenness is not an excuse. It's not an excuse to make mistakes. It's not an excuse to keep doing what you've always done, because surely you will keep getting what you've always gotten. It's the law. It's one of those natural laws. Rather, embracing our brokenness is more about surrendering to the fact that we can't do it alone. Surrendering to the fact that life happens. Life. I love one of Rumi's poems called The House Guest, We do not have control over the guests that come into our home. Sometimes there will be sadness. Sometimes there will be hurt. Sometimes there will be joy. Sometimes there will be laughter. We don't have control over that. What we do have control over is our response to that. So the lesson for us is that there is grace, there is salvation in our brokenness. Because it takes us to a place where we realize that although we do not have control, we are never, ever, ever alone. That there is something bigger than us. Some of us call that God. Some of us call it presence of pure beingness. Whatever you call it, it is that which created us, that is greater than us. And it is in our brokenness that we can discover that no matter how many times we miss the mark, no matter how many mistakes we make, no matter how many times we feel broken, we are always and forever divine. We're always loved. There is no end to the love of that which created us. And so even in those moments when we are not our best, and I have a few of those, at least once or twice a week, even when we are not our best, we are enough. We are enough because we were created in the likeness and the image of God. So that means God has cracks too, right? God, as it expresses in life, is full of cracks. And the cracks are how the light gets in. The chorus in Beautiful Brokenness says, beautiful brokenness, love will always win. Beautiful brokenness, that's how the light gets in. It is through our brokenness that we get out of the way and we allow something greater than us to fill us, to get us through it, to take us on. There is salvation in knowing that no matter what, we are as we are. No matter what, we are enough. No matter what, we are loved. No matter what, we are never, ever alone. The very last part of that song says, from the shattered pieces of a life, tattered and torn, something lovely rises up, and I have been reborn. Day by day, I wake to someone I have never seen. Who would have ever guessed that I could love someone like me? That's salvation. Namaste, my friends. With infinite love and gratitude. All right. So I'm